Let's be real. Women aren't built to handle rejection, not because they can't, but because society has pampered them with constant validation. Since the dawn of time, they've been the ones pursued, flattered, and fought over. So when single men start stepping off the carousel and saying, "Nah, I'm good," it sends shockwaves through their ego. And the larger that group of men grows, the louder the alarm bells ring in their heads. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Rejection is foreign territory for many women. When the validation stream slows down, they're forced to confront a reality they never prepared for, that their beauty and charm don't hold the same currency they once did. Men opting out of the dating game don't just bruise egos, they shatter the illusion that women will always have a safety net of suitors ready to chase them. And
do you think like what you see in the movies where if you were to strike a guy in the nuts, he would just like, fall over and he can no longer control his motor? Like,
should we test it out?
I'm pretty sure,
I'm just saying
it hurts,
that's a good
but like,
start. I'm not going to tell people how to attack men. I'm just saying if you take those classes, they teach you
how about this? Here, let me give women better advice. Go get a firearm. That'll help you out much more in a self-defense situation against a man than taking years of BJJ.
let's talk about that safety net. For years, social media has been the go-to drug for easy validation. A single selfie could rake in hundreds of likes, boosting their sense of worth in minutes. But as more men stop playing the game, the audience for those thirst traps is shrinking, and women are scrambling to keep their dwindling supply of attention alive. Just take a look at TikTok. It's flooded with 30-somethings posting "look at me" content, drenched in desperation to claw back the validation they've grown addicted to. Here's where it gets even more awkward. These women are stuck in a feedback loop. They post thirst traps for attention, but the men they actually want aren't biting. Why? Because high-value men, the ones who've decided they're done with the nonsense, aren't wasting their time double-tapping thirst traps. They've got better things to do than inflate egos for free. So the attention these women do get comes from men they'd never consider dating, which only frustrates them further. What we're seeing is the fallout of years of inflated expectations meeting the reality of shrinking options. As the pool of men saying no thanks grows, women are left questioning if their allure is fading, or worse, if they've overplayed their hand. The cold, hard truth? They have. The modern dating market is shifting, and women are struggling to adapt. They've been sold the idea that they'll always have the upper hand, that men will always compete for their attention. But when men stop competing, the game doesn't just change, it ends. And for women who've built their identity around being pursued, that's not just a wake-up call, it's an existential crisis.
5 ways women lose a good man and how you can avoid it. Let's get into it, ladies. Number 1, taking them for granted. A man been so good to you for so long, you no longer see the value in him and what he does for you. Number 2, not communicating well or effectively, like expecting a man to read your mind and getting mad when he can't. Number 3, being dismissive about how your behavior makes him feel, or becoming overly defensive when you're being held accountable for your action. Rumor has it that women struggle with accountability. Number 4, being self-consumed and unwilling to compromise. Being so hyper-focused on your laundry list of needs, desires, wants, that you neglect his needs in the process. Remember, a relationship is not just about you or one person getting their needs met. And number 5, allowing your unaddressed trauma, your insecurity, make it hard for that man to enjoy his life and pursue his purpose in peace. Becoming insufferable.
Number 1 way to lose a good man is to act masculine, which is the way you're acting right now. Men don't want to be married to another man. They want a soft-spoken lady who's their peace and helps them relax. Every time this female opens her mouth, no matter how inspiring her speech is, she gives off nagging vibes. It's like she tells you to take out the trash every time you hear her voice. These females need a mute button because literally quiet is more valuable than their bimbo thoughts. And this female addressed the super basic requirements, which just shows how bad it is to date in the West. Nothing about cooking and cleaning for the man or actually making him happy. It's, to sum it up, stop being a self-centered bitch.
My biggest regret in life is getting my tubes tied. And it's not just because I want to get pregnant again. Doctors will promise you that it's not hormonal. It is. And it's caused my hair to fall out at a very alarming rate, weight gain and not being able to lose that weight, and let's not even get started with the fucking periods. My periods are so bad after getting this procedure done that I have to get iron infusions because I'm severely anemic because of the amount of blood I am losing during my period. My doctor's solution, getting back on birth control to control the bleeding. That defeats the fucking purpose. I got this done so that I didn't need birth control because it's really bad for your body. Truth be told, I would have rather just stayed on birth control because the effects that this has had on me is worse. If you're on a birth control that you don't like, you can stop taking it or you can have it removed. Once you get your tubes tied, you're stuck unless you pay $6,000 to get them untied. And when I said that in my last video, because I made a video saying I regretted getting my tubes tied because I wanted more children, that is true. But I said that I wasn't paying $6,000 to have it reversed. Everybody was like, well, if you can't afford to pay $6,000, you can't afford to have another child. No, I just don't see a point in paying $6,000 for a 10-minute procedure that you only have a 50% chance of even getting pregnant again. Because doctors will tell you that there's a 75% chance you can get pregnant after getting them untied. My doctor told me it was way less than that. It was only about 50%. And that's another thing. These doctors are not fully transparent with you. I did a lot of research and I was aware of the negative side effects. When I brought it up to my doctor, he assured me that that's not true. And so I went ahead and got this done, and I wish I didn't. Depression. My depression is worse. Way worse. My anxiety is way worse. My mood swings is way worse. Most women who get this procedure end up needing a full hysterectomy. Speaking of hysterectomies, I would have gotten a hysterectomy, but most doctors will not do it unless it's medically necessary. I did my research because I really only wanted to go through with this because I was told that it was not hormonal. When you do your research, it'll tell you that it's not hormonal. And your doctors will tell you that it's not hormonal and that it does not affect your periods. It's a lie. It does affect your hormones tremendously. And if you read the comments on that video that I made, it's pinned, you will see that it affects your hormones. And all these things that your doctors promise it doesn't do, it does. And I know every woman's body is different. You know, some women get this procedure done and they have no issues. But there are a lot of risk factors that come with this, and they're very common.
The biggest threat to hypergamous women? Single men who have the audacity to actually be happy. It's like kryptonite to their ego. These men have stepped out of the validation hamster wheel, quit chasing, and shockingly, are thriving without constantly swiping right or tripping over themselves to impress. That, right there, is a gut punch to women who were raised to believe men would always be at their beck and call. For years, society spoon-fed these women the narrative that men exist to bankroll their lifestyle, fill their emotional voids, and clap like seals for every selfie. But now, men are flipping the game entirely, and these women are left grasping at air where their endless pool of attention used to be. Hypergamous women, the ones who built their self-worth on being chased, are realizing that the game they mastered is suddenly losing players. Why? Because men finally looked at the scorecard and said, nope. The cost-to-reward ratio in modern dating? Laughable. These guys are tired of footing the bill for dinner after dinner with someone who's half scrolling through Instagram under the table. They're done risking accusations or getting ghosted the moment Chad with a better paycheck comes along. Divorce courts, alimony traps, and the emotional labor expected of them? Men have seen the receipts, and they're not buying in. Instead, they've turned the tables. They're hitting the gym, crushing their careers, building businesses, and living for themselves, not for someone else's validation. And let's be honest, this newfound self-sufficiency is an existential nightmare for women who thrived on being the center of male attention. Here's the kicker. These men aren't lonely. They're not crying into their pillows over some missed Tinder match. They're rediscovering passions, building genuine connections, and living lives that don't hinge on a woman's fleeting interest. That terrifies hypergamous women because it pulls the rug out from under their strategy. If men no longer need them for validation or fulfillment, what's left? These men have realized their worth isn't measured by how many women they date, but by the goals they crush and the lives they build. And every time one of these men smiles in his new car, celebrates a promotion, or posts about climbing a mountain, it's a quiet rebellion against the game hypergamous women thought they'd rigged forever. Too bad, ladies. Looks like the house of cards is falling.
Heartfelt story of how in 11th grade I became a school slut. I just moved across country and started a new school. I had exactly one friend. We'll call her Shady, because she was a shady fucking bitch. She started dating a senior boy and didn't want to hang out with me, which is fine. She got all these new cool friends and they didn't like me because I was new and a girl, and I guess that's enough reason. Well, Shady started telling everybody that I fucked a bunch of people, and I was like, what the heck? How? Who? I literally sit at home and watch Harry Potter. I have no friends. Nonetheless, they'd taunt me in the hallways and be like, you slut. Or they'd follow me to the classroom and be like, we're gonna beat your ass. They'd message me on Facebook and be like, we're gonna kill you. And I'd be like, why don't you like me? And they'd be like, die. And I'd be like, okay, fair enough. So I got tired of the bullshit. I was like, I'm gonna become the one thing they fear the most. A real whore. So shortly after, I made one other new friend. His name was Juan, and he was great, and I loved him, and he would invite me to all the parties. I'd go to these parties to get drunk and make out with the guys that these girls liked. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty petty, but yeah. So when I would return to school after the weekend, they'd be like, you're a whore. I'd be like, true. There's really no moral to the story, but if you can't go high, just go really fucking low and beat bitches at their own game.
The tables have turned, and let's just say, modern women are feeling it. They're no longer the gatekeepers of happiness, no longer the ones deciding who gets a shot at fulfillment. Men have realized they don't need to play by outdated rules, and they're building lives that don't revolve around women's whims. And the kicker? When a man stays single and invests in himself, his value skyrockets, financially, emotionally, physically. Meanwhile, for women stuck in the hypergamous dating game, their perceived value dips if they can't snag a partner. It's no wonder there's a growing undercurrent of anxiety bubbling beneath all the "I'm fine on my own" Instagram captions. Let's break it down further. For centuries, women who mastered the art of manipulating male attention ensured their survival and thrived. They controlled the narrative, making men feel like they had to prove their worth through provision, devotion, and blind loyalty. Fast forward to today, and you've got a generation of women still clinging to that outdated playbook, expecting men to cater to their every whim while contributing little beyond Instagram aesthetics and a laundry list of demands. The problem? Men aren't falling for it anymore. Here's what's truly setting these women off. Men are finally taking their independence speeches at face value. Instead of stepping up to play the game, men are stepping away entirely. You're independent? Great, then figure it out yourself. And just like that, the power dynamic shifts. It's not a test of dominance anymore. It's a full-on exit strategy for men who've realized they don't need to be anyone's plan B, sugar daddy, or emotional punching bag. What's happening now is the rise of two camps among men. First, there are the simps, those who've swallowed the Hollywood fantasy whole and think bending over backward will earn them affection. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Then there's the second camp, men who see through the rigged game and have decided they'd rather focus on themselves. These men aren't lonely, they're thriving. They're hitting the gym, doubling down on their careers, building businesses, and living life on their terms. They've quit chasing and discovered the secret. There's way more to life than validating someone else's fragile ego. Meanwhile, women are scrambling to figure out where all the good men went. Thirst traps? They're getting fewer likes. The men who used to bend over backward? They're now too busy crushing goals. And those heartfelt rants about how there are no good men left? Yeah, that's just the sound of women realizing they've lost the power they once wielded. The hamster wheel of romance, as it's been marketed to men, has stopped spinning. The tables have turned, and modern women are finding out what happens when the other half decides to stop playing along. Spoiler, it doesn't end well for them. And that's it for today on Sigma Traits. Make sure you hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring that notification bell. Support this channel through membership. You can also support through PayPal link in the description. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you all tomorrow.